4.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is Newslink. Here are the top stories. Senegal's Law Commission to assess amnesty bill targeting social and political harmony. Conakry Dixon Court hears testimonies in 2009 Guinea massacre case as prosecution pushes for crimes against humanity charges. Ghana's President Akufo-Addo delays assent to anti-LGBTQ bill amid Supreme Court challenge, and Côte d'Ivoire and Turkey to boost trade volume to over $600 million in 2024. Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. Let's begin the midday edition in Senegal because the Law Commission is convening today, Tuesday, to review the adopted amnesty bill whose details was recently publicized. According to a decree signed on March 1, the amnesty law aims to alleviate the social and political climate while enhancing national cohesion. The text notes that certain legal proceedings have resulted in convictions leading to incapacities and disqualifications related to voting and election rights. With this in mind, the bill proposes amendments for offenses committed in Senegal and abroad between 2021 and 2024. Pape Ogosek, professor of law at the Gaston Berger University in St. Louis, analyzes the content of the bill.
By reading the exposition of the motives, what we can essentially retain is that there is a will to abuse the power in place, which will lead to a kind of disappearance in several convictions related to the third faction between the painful events of March 2021 and March 2024. Now, it remains to be seen if there are facts that have been condemned and that will be dissolved or absolved. So that's what we can. We have to wait. Maybe for this law to be voted with possible amendments and that we can draw lessons from precise facts. The principle of the law is that a law remains in force until it is brought to another law. Concerning the amnesties, there is also the question of the people. So this law gives a certain number of rights to citizens who have already been convicted. And so the question of rights is being asked. So a new law, even if it comes back to a certain number of things, a new law will be confronted with the question of rights.
Pape Ogosek is a professor of law at the Gaston Berger University in St. Louis here in Senegal. The Malian Transitional President Assimi Goïta has officially received the conclusive report outlining the terms of reference for the Inter-Malian dialogue. The comprehensive document encompasses a communication strategy and procedural guidelines for fostering peace and national reconciliation through dialogue. This development comes in the aftermath of a workshop convened last week to validate the terms of reference for the dialogue. David Vincent has from this report by WADR's Aliyu Cham in Bamako.
Following the approval of the terms of reference by both the steering committee members and the 350 delegates representing various regions of the country, the final document was presented to the president of the Malian transition. Ousmane Issoufou Maïga, leading the delegation, emphasized the urgent need for these meetings. The former prime minister expressed the belief that these discussions will contribute to fostering a climate of trust among the people of Mali.
I appeal to all the communities in Kida region to join hands to cultivate peace, live together, and support the highest authorities in their fight for the well-being of Mali.
In the aftermath of validating the terms of reference for the Inter-Malian dialogue, several recommendations were put forth with a notable emphasis on involving refugees in discussions. Ousmane Issoufou Maïga, serving as the chair of the steering committee for the Inter-Malian Dialogue for Peace and National Reconciliation, highlighted this aspect.
Let there be no hesitation, no fear. The famines and the state of humanity are there to secure the people and their well-being without confusion and with strict respect for human rights.
The Inter-Malian Dialogue is slated to extend over a month, although a specific date for the discussions has not yet been established. The focal points of this dialogue will revolve around peace, national reconciliation, institutions, the economy, security, and geopolitics. A substantial total of 3,000 participants are expected to take part in this significant dialogue initiative.
That was a report filed in by WADR's Ali Jami Bamako and voiced in our studios by David Vincent. Now, turning our attention to Niger, the movement of goods from Benin remains challenging due to the continued closure of borders on the Niger side. Despite the recent decision by ECOWAS to lift sanctions against Niamey, this development, perceived by some as a non-event, has not fully satisfied traders. While some Nigerians welcomed lifting of the sanctions, traders expressed dissatisfaction, demanding the immediate reopening of borders even though sanctions have been lifted. Here's a report by WADR's Mutala Zaberu in Niamey and voiced in our studios by Imo Edet.
The biggest market in Niamey, Niger's capital, is currently infused with a sense of satisfaction following the lifting of sanctions imposed on the country after the July 26 coup. The eagerly awaited reopening of the country's land borders is particularly welcomed by traders like Ismail Chaibu, who believe that the timing of this decision is opportune.
As a retailer, I see this as a good thing because if the penalties continue like this, it's hard to see how the public will cope.
Amidst the challenges faced by the population due to inflation and shortages of essential food items, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has not only lifted the sanctions but also decided to resume financial transactions and unfreeze the assets of the state of Niger. This development is seen as a ray of hope for the Nigerian economy, as emphasized by Yakuba Dan Maradi, president of the Niger Importers and Exporters Union.
That's for sure. That's true for every market. As soon as the winter season ends, food prices fall. Why does that happen? Because there has been a lot of production.
However, Yakuba Dan Maradi notes that the impact of the sanctions extends beyond Niger, affecting other ECOWAS countries as well. Surprisingly, a week after the sanctions were lifted, the Nigerian authorities have yet to provide a reaction to these significant developments.
Imo Edit with our report by WADR's Mutala Zuberu in Niamey.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we are streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. Let's now take you to Guinea, where the Dixon Court on Monday received testimonies from defendants, victims, and witnesses in the case related to the 28 September 2009 massacre. The prosecution called for the reclassification of the case's facts, proposing that the defendants be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. This plea received support from the lawyers representing the civil party, who argue that given the developments, the prosecution is well within its rights to make such a request. However, the defense holds a different perspective and plans to contest the prosecution's plea. Ogebirika brings more details in this report by Cheno Alpha Ibrahima Balde in Conakry.
A new phase in the trial of the events of September 28, 2009 has commenced in Conakry. The public prosecutor has submitted a 20-page requisition to the Dixon Court, now urging the prosecution of Dadis Camara and associates for crimes against humanity. The charges, including felony, rape, murder and property destruction, are considered light by the prosecutor. The civil party's lawyer, Barrister Alpha Umar Dispar, acknowledges the request. The defense lawyers argue that the public prosecutor's request aims solely to delay the trial, with Barrister Zokame Haba pledging opposition to it. To allow the defendant's counsel to respond to the prosecution's submissions, the court president has decided to suspend the confrontation phase originally scheduled for Monday. The hearing is adjourned until March 18, 2024.
A report filed in by WADR's Cheno Alpha Ibrahima Balde in Conakry and voiced in our studios by Oge Berika. Now away from Guinea, Ghana's president Nana Akufo-Addo has announced that he will withhold assent to the Human, Sexual and Family Violence Bill until a Supreme Court case against the legislation is resolved. This decision follows warnings from entities such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund (IMF), threatening to limit funding if the bill receives presidential approval. The bill seeking to criminalize and prohibit LGBTQ+ activities with a potential 3-year jail term, gained parliamentary approval on February 28, 2024, prompting domestic and international criticism. Tawfiq Abdel Nasser has rest of the details.
The controversial legislation has sparked reactions, with condemnation from the diplomatic community and Ghana's finance ministry warning against the president's assent due to potential adverse financial implications. The ministry cautions about a potential loss of $3.8 billion in World Bank financing over the next 5 to 6 years if the bill becomes law. This stance faces criticism from the parliamentary minority, questioning the basis for the figures and the ministry's delayed input during the bill's framing.
The president has spoken severally about the need for us to live beyond aid, and I am disappointed that we do not see this as an opportunity to galvanize the collective strength of our citizens and sympathizers to show that we can indeed live beyond aid, especially when that aid is tied to a way of life that is alien to us as a people.
Following this, Director of Communication for the Presidency, Eugene Ahin, shared quotes from the President during the meeting with the diplomatic corps. President Akufo-Addo emphasized Ghana's commitment to human rights and the rule of law, clarifying that the bill faces a legal challenge at the Supreme Court. He asserted that no action could be taken by his government on the private member's bill until a decision is reached. This development has prompted varied reactions, with critics suggesting that the president's stance was anticipated given his history with other private members' bills. However, Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin dismisses such conclusions as premature.
I don't want to go into what IMF has said or what U.S. Embassy has said or what the Ministry of Finance has said. What I want to underscore, in addition to all I've said, is that tolerance is part of our values as a people.
Tawfiq Abdel Nasser with that report. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has assured the international business community of the country's preparedness for business engagement, emphasizing his administration's resolute stance against internal vested interests that undermine investor confidence in the Nigerian economy. Addressing the Nigeria-Qatar Business and Investment Forum in Doha, President Tinubu urged industry leaders from Qatar to promptly report any government official soliciting bribes or inducements during business transactions. He assured direct access to the President's office for a swift resolution. W. Idas Osman Umar in Abuja tells us more.
Following the Nigeria-Qatar Business and Investment Forum in Doha last Sunday, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu reached 7 economic-driven agreements with his Qatari counterparts geared towards strong bilateral trade. Tinubu assured Qatari investors of the vast opportunity in Nigeria, adding that his administration will remove bottlenecks hindering the smooth running of business enterprises. Nigeria's president stated that Africa's largest economy and its system are being reformed, wooing investors that the country is open and ready for business.
The country as a whole, of over 240 million people, is ready and anxious to welcome you and your investment with open arms and open mind, to assure you that your investment is safe in our hand. We have men and women of great reputation here. I believe you forged a committee, established a good committee that will exchange ideas and continue the communication.
The 7 agreements encompass the establishment of a joint business council, JBC, between the Qatar Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA. There are also agreements on the regulation of worker employment with the government of Qatar, cooperation in education, youth and sports, tourism, business events, and a memorandum of understanding to combat illicit trade in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM and online on WADR.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Senegal's Law Commission to assess amnesty bill targeting social and political harmony. Conakry Dixon Court hears testimonies in 2009 Guinea massacre case as prosecution pushes for crimes against humanity charges. Ghana's President Akufo-Addo delays assent to anti-gay law amid Supreme Court challenge. Still ahead in the news, Cote d'Ivoire and Turkey to boost trade volume to over $600 million in 2024. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for staying with us. Proponents and opponents of female genital mutilation (FGM) gathered at the premises of the National Assembly of the Gambia to vocalize their divergent views. This demonstration followed the presentation of the Women's Amendment Bill on Monday, which aims to abolish the existing anti-FGM law. From Banjul, Sankle Janko reports.
Protesters gathered at the National Assembly to voice their support for the Women's Amendment Bill, which seeks to repeal the anti-FGM law. The bill, read in Parliament on Monday, seeks to lift the ban on female circumcision in the Gambia, arguing that the current prohibition violates citizens' rights to practice their culture and religion as guaranteed by the Constitution. Imam Conte, a religious leader, led a group of demonstrators urging the parliament to lift the ban on female circumcision.
We are here to urge the government to talk to its lawmakers to repeal the bill. Let them not jail our mothers. We do not like them to take our wives and jail them. Even if it's limited to our cultures, our constitution guarantees our traditional beliefs and practices. Why should they not allow us to practice it?
In contrast, pro-FGM protesters, mainly women activists, also stood at the assembly gate to remind lawmakers of their responsibilities to women in the country. Fatu Jaju, a survivor of FGM and a women's rights activist, highlighted the need for attention to the issue.
If we were 50% ahead, I think we are now 10% and 40% back, which is very unfortunate because there has been a lot of work and efforts invested into the ban against FGM. And now that the ban was secured in 2015, so many lives were impacted. A lot of people changed their perceptions. Survivors were able to come out to speak.
The question remains whether the law criminalizing the practice pronounced by ex-President Yahya Jammeh will be repealed by parliamentarians or maintained, given the mounting pressure from the international community, including the UN. For Newslink West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankule Jenko reporting from Banjul.
And now to financial news. Cote d'Ivoire and Turkey have agreed to boost a volume of trade estimated to reach $600 million in 2024. The multi-million-dollar agreement was made in Abidjan during a meeting between Numan Kurtulmuş, President of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, and the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara. According to Kurtulmuş, economic relations will be strengthened as well as investments in the fields of culture, education, and tourism. In 2023, Turkey was the second foreign country after Burkina Faso to have invested the most in Cote d'Ivoire, with trade volume standing at 7%. Meanwhile, Senegal expects its first barrels of oil between May and July 2024, according to Energy Minister Antoine Diome. The minister said the state has taken the initiative to ensure that Senegal benefits from the exploitation of these natural resources. During this discussion with journalists, Antoine Diome announced that the first barrels of oil will be available this year from the GTA project shared with Mauritania. The Sangoma project off the coast of Senegal is about 95% complete, according to him. Diome also announced that it is only a matter of time before Senegal joins the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. The country is now an observer, member of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
For today's press review, let's join WADR's Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
For today's edition of Press Review, we will begin with the newspaper. Don't be deterred by resignation, we urges CDC partisans. We see the photograph of former President George Weah along with the former chairman of the Coalition for Democratic Change, Morba Molu. Tape welcomes audit at EPA. That's the former executive director of the Environmental Protection Agency. On the back page of the newspaper, Cater gets lifetime imprisonment for killing wife. Lawmaker give ultimatum to LMP LEC. Bouaka concerned about situation of Liberians. We see the photograph of some Liberians at the Bujumbura refugee camp in Ghana. We move over now to the Inquirer newspaper. Innocent protesters, the paper is asking a question with a kickoff. We are rebukes Bouaka-led government, but what? If you have interest in the story, try to get a copy of this paper and read more. EPA targets development finance in arrest agenda. Is Bouaka still interested in AFL's protestation report? Bujumbura refugee camp situation concern Bouaka. Sando County Senator Augustine Chie has criticized Representative Frank Safoko and other Coalition for Democratic Change CDC official call for impeachment against President Joseph Bouaka. The In-Profile Daily newspaper is now our last stop. Fire disaster hits Fire for Fire Church, Apostolic School. Supreme Court accused of conflicting code of conduct. On the back page of the In-Profile Daily newspaper, Captain vows to eradicate darkness across Liberia. Villagers demand benefits as bank seizes Lagos properties. Wofama releases fundings into Beer Mountain citizens' rivalry. As a means of understanding the nitty-gritty of the continuing rift between Beer Mining Company and citizens of affected communities in Grand Cape County, the GIZ-supported Young Liberian Women Organization for Improvement has released its funding. Wofawa is a local mineral civil society organization working in the environmental and mineral sectors of Liberia. Over the past few months, the organization, with support from the German Development Organization GIZ, visited 2 of the 3 affected communities and released its findings before organizing grievance committee with the mandate to settle disputes between the company and the affected communities. On that note, thank you so much for following, and bye-bye.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is a Gambian security expert, Major Keba Giba retired, who joins us for a follow-up on the report by WADR's Banjul correspondent on the increasing rate of crime in the country. Lately, the Gambia has recorded a number of security breaches resulting in murders, homicide, burglary, as well as transborder crimes along the Senegambia frontiers. Keba, in analyzing the situation, makes recommendations.
It is indeed a concern for a cross-section of the Gambians, especially those in the Greater Banjul area, where we have a series of reports of murders, reports of homicide, and the government kinds of perhaps doing their work, but they have a great room of improvement. But when you look at the Gambia, in where most of the crimes are reported, a larger concentration of security users and agencies are established. We have a department of the Gambia Police Force called the Anti-Crime Unit. We have the economic contingent, which is its force headquarters, and the contingent of the Senegalese on the economic are also stationed. We have the Border Task Force, Security Task Force. We have a battalion of 2 battalions of the National Army in the Greater Banjul area, and we also have a police intervention unit, which is also stationed in that very Greater Banjul area. So when you look at the security establishment by design, it's all concentrated in the Greater Banjul area. But notwithstanding all these issues of murder, homicide, or the domestic violence, domestic crimes are reported.
What do you think are the drivers of the growing security concerns, or maybe the gaps, really?
Most of these driving forces or factors could be unemployment, the economic challenges affecting almost every cross section of the Gambian society, about 15%, which is very high. And many of them are also taking this irregular migration and not be returned. So when they return, they come back again without opportunities, job employment opportunities. And also undocumented foreign nationals that are also in the country. As per last week, the police reported that most of the crimes, which those perpetrators are said to be most of the non-nationals in the Gambia. So when this kind of undocumented non-nationals could also have been one of the factors of these crimes because, as reported, most of them are non-nationals.
Are there other silent factors that you can recall?
There are silent factors because when the government seems very inactive. You don't sit until when crimes are committed, then you start running and then trying to what we call firefighting approach. That is how these institutions, especially in the security architecture, are taking some kind of approaches.
I'm very sure that among your recommendations will be the government of the Gambia working itself on intelligence gathering and sharing among the different security agencies to tackle some of this threat. But going further, what would you suggest? Which will apply not just in the Gambia but neighboring countries struggling from the same security threats or challenges?
One of my recommendations, apart from what you just said, whereby you have sharing of intelligence information among the security agencies in the country, they need to also harmonize the reporting lines. Those are very important, that each of these agencies or security institutions have their own mandates, but they are intertwined. Also, funds for the security agencies needs to be improved.
That was Major Keba Giba, retired, a Gambian security expert. It's now time for sports update. Let's join Sankle Janko.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Confederation of African Football CAF will conduct the quarterfinals draw for the Confederation Cup on Tuesday, 12 March 2024. This comes following the completion of the group stages. This season's quarterfinalists include 4 clubs that have lifted the title in recent years, which are current holders USM Alger 2023, Stade de Malien in 2009, RS Barkhane in 2020, as well as Zamalek in 2019. Making up the final list of the quarterfinalists are Nigeria's Rivers United, Dreams FC of Ghana, Abu Salem of Libya, as well as Egyptian side Modern Future. And Ghana has reassured its preparedness to host the delayed 2023 African Games. This comes amid concerns ahead of the opening ceremony on Thursday. The local organizers said the country is fully prepared and ready to host the competition. The games, originally scheduled to start in August 2023, were postponed because of a disagreement over marketing rights, which delayed the completion of facilities, according to media reports. For that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's how we wrap up this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and Maojo Juve for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, now WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. I am Abdullah Hassan. Good afternoon.